This story takes place in the land of the living, in a cold and gloomy city from the Victorian era. A virtuous and intelligent young man named Victor Van Dort is the son of fishmongers Nell and William Van Dort, who, due to their hard work and constant dedication to their humble business in the city, have achieved such great success that they have suddenly become a family of new money. And that's how the story begins. Welcome to Random Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap the movie. The young man is about to marry a beautiful and distinguished young woman named Victoria Everglot, the daughter of the bankrupt aristocrats Maudline and Finus Everglot. Victoria and Victor don't even know each other, as the wedding was orchestrated by their parents. The Everglot family wants to marry off their daughter so that the Van Dort family can help them out of bankruptcy, while the Van Dort family wants to marry off their son to gain social status.
But I've never even spoken to her.
The Van Dort family introduces their son to the Everglot family, who don't like them at first glance. There, Victor plays the piano, and when Victoria hears him, she comes down to see who is playing that beautiful melody. Victor and Victoria meet, and although their wedding was arranged, they start to like each other. Then Victoria's mother arrives to inform them that the rehearsal is about to begin. During the rehearsal, a man named Lord Burkiss, a supposed millionaire and acquaintance of the Everglots, arrives at the mansion to witness the rehearsal. While practicing his vows, Victor has a nervous breakdown and accidentally loses the ring, which rolls toward where Victoria's mother is. As he tries to retrieve it, he accidentally knocks over a candle, setting his fiancée's mother's dress on fire. After ruining the wedding rehearsal, Victor is scolded by Pastor Galswells, who forbids him from returning until he has properly learned his wedding vows. While walking in the woods, Victor is worried about what Victoria will think of him. He starts practicing his wedding vows. At first, he doesn't succeed, but Victor doesn't give up and keeps practicing until he perfects them. He places his wedding ring on a tree root that resembled a hand. The problem is that it wasn't a tree root. It was the hand of a beautiful corpse bride who rises from the earth, dressed as a bride, accepting the marriage proposal.
I do.
Terrified, Victor runs through the forest, but he's so clumsy that he trips several times. He thinks he's lost the woman, but no. She appears and kisses him, causing Victor to faint. When he wakes up, he finds himself in a very strange and eerie place, paradoxically more lively and colorful than the land of the living. Surrounded by the corpses of people who had died from different eras and ages, including the corpse bride, the girl he unintentionally married. Victor asks the girl who she is, and while singing, a skull tells her story. She was a beautiful girl who was seduced by a handsome man who wasn't favored by her family, so the two planned to get married and escape together. The girl wore her mother's wedding dress and waited for her beloved in the woods. But when he arrived, she was brutally murdered by him. The man turned out to be a fraud who only wanted her family's fortune. Under that big tree, the girl made a promise that her true love would free her someday. Victor came along and unintentionally freed her, condemning himself to be with her forever. Scared, Victor flees. Meanwhile, in the land of the living, the families are informed that Victor was seen with another woman in the woods. The Everglots want to cancel the wedding, but the Van Dorts manage to buy some time until dawn to find Victor.
Very well. Till dawn.
The corpse bride looks for Victor while he tries to escape from her. In the end, she finds him and they sit down to talk. She tells him her name is Emily and gives Victor a wedding gift, a bone dog named Scraps, who turns out to be his old pet. To get out of the land of the dead, Victor comes up with the idea of tricking Emily by saying he wants her to meet his parents. So Emily decides to take him to Elder Gutknecht, an old sorcerer who helps the two travel to the land of the living. Through a Ukrainian spell, which can only be undone by saying the word in vernaculum. Upon arriving in the land of the living, Victor asks Emily to wait in the forest while he prepares his parents for the news. Emily has a worm inside her head that tells her the boy is suspicious and urges her to follow him. Victor goes to the Everglot mansion to meet with Victoria. When he arrives, Victor confesses that when he saw her, he felt he wanted to be with her. The feeling is mutual.
I feel the same.
But just as they are about to kiss, Emily appears at the window. Victor tells Victoria that he accidentally married a dead woman. Emily, seeing Victor with another woman, decides to say in vernaculum to return to the land of the dead.
Victoria!
There, Emily begins to cry when she realizes Victor married her by mistake. Even one of her eyes falls out.
You poor, ugly thing, you.
Victor tells her that they could never be together because they are from different worlds. He tries to make her understand that he would never marry her. Heartbroken, Emily leaves, but as she reflects, she starts to realize that Victor might be right and that he should be with Victoria. The worm and a spider sing, trying to cheer her up and advising her that if Victor gets to know her better, he might stay with her. Although depressed, Emily understands that being dead, she could never be with him. Meanwhile, Victoria tries to tell her mother that Victor is married to a dead woman, but her mother thinks she's crazy, so she locks her in her room. Victoria, unfazed by being locked up, escapes through the window. She heads to Pastor Galswell's house to tell him what happened to her fiancé and asks if there's a way to undo what he did.
I believe I know the thing to do.
The pastor puts Victoria in a straitjacket and takes her to her parents, telling them that their daughter has lost her mind. This time, her mother locks her up under guard to prevent her from escaping. At that moment, Lord Burkiss shows up, offering himself as a candidate to marry Victoria since Victor still hasn't appeared. Victoria's parents announce that there will be a wedding,
That's good.
but not with Victor.
Oh, that's bad.
Meanwhile, Victor's parents are still searching for him. Victor goes to speak with a depressed Emily, apologizing for lying to her to leave the land of the dead. He makes her feel better while playing the piano. Suddenly, an announcement is heard, and a new corpse arrives. It's Mayhew, the Van Dort family coachman, who informs Victor of Victoria's wedding.
But how could she?
Meanwhile, in the land of the living, Victoria marries Lord Burkiss.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Even she knows it's wrong. Elder Gutknecht tells Emily that Victor's vows are only valid until death do us part, and since she is dead, they are already separated. So the only solution for her to stay with Victor is for Victor to give up his mortality. This means they would have to recite their vows again in the land of the living, while the mortal would have to drink a powerful poison called the wine of time, which slowly stops the heart until death. Hearing the news, Victor is scared, but Emily refuses to do this to him. However, since Victor believes that Victoria has married another man, he gathers his courage and agrees to be with Emily. Victor announces his wedding to the world of the dead, and everyone decides to attend the ceremony in the land of the living. The dead arrive at the Everglot mansion, scaring the living and then causing chaos throughout the city, until they reunite with their loved ones, forming an aura filled with calm, happiness, and memories. Meanwhile, Lord Burkiss, who is just a con man, tries to flee with the Everglot family's money, but realizes he married Victoria for nothing because the family is bankrupt. Victoria leaves the mansion and decides to follow the dead to the church, where Emily and Victor's wedding begins. Upon entering, she sees the couple exchanging vows. At that moment, the corpse bride realizes Victoria is in the church and decides to stop Victor from drinking the poison. Realizing she is stealing Victoria's dreams just as hers were stolen, Emily decides to let Victor be with Victoria. At that moment, Lord Burkiss arrives, reminding everyone that Victoria is still his wife, so he grabs her to take her away. Emily recognizes Burkiss as the man who murdered her years ago. Burkiss takes Victoria hostage, but Victor decides to fight for his beloved, leading to an epic final battle. Burkiss has a sword, and Victor has a fork. Just as Burkiss is about to stab Victor, Emily steps in, taking the sword from him. Now, with the sword in hand, she demands that Lord Burkiss leave the church. However, before leaving, Burkiss drinks the cup of poison, thinking it's wine. As he's about to leave, he dies and is attacked by the dead. The dead take the opportunity to pounce on him, seeking revenge for what he did to the poor and innocent Emily. as such a betrayal deserves the worst punishment. Emily gives Victor back the ring before leaving and thanks him because, thanks to him, she is now free. And that's how the movie ends.